Peace and great morning, kings and queens. It's another motivation, money making Monday, all access. This morning, we have the honor of being joined by Samuel Fein. Yes, I'm thankful for you to take this time out on today to speak with us and just have a candid conversation about what you do as a public servant and all the things that you have accomplished thus far. And without further ado, I just want the people to know, who is Sam Fein?
Well, thanks for having me here, Angelo.
You're welcome.
So I'm an Albany County legislator.
Okay.
Tell a little bit about my story, how I got here.
Okay.
Grew up in the Boston area.
Got you.
Came to the Capital Region to college. Went to Union College, and then basically stuck around. Got involved in politics. Left for briefly to work on a couple campaigns, but ended up getting a job in the assembly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided at 25 to just go for it and run for office.
Okay.
So I ran for county legislator. Looking back on it, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I knew how to campaign,
Yes.
but I, probably at that time didn't really have the experience to know what it was actually like to be in the role of a county legislator.
Right.
But, I think I wanted to make a difference. I'd always been interested in politics. And I think a lot of that is, I grew up, I grew up, I was fortunate to have a lot of opportunities. I grew up in a suburb of Boston, went to good public schools.
Gotcha.
I was very close with my grandfather growing up,
Mm-hmm.
my parents, and my grandfather was an economics professor. He fought his whole life for a single-payer healthcare system, a system where everyone has healthcare.
Right.
So I think those values, things like healthcare are a human right, the sense of justice of like what's right and wrong, and the government's role to provide for people and make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity, everyone's on the same playing field, everyone has their basic needs met.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think a lot of that motivated me to get involved, and then I always approached the job to get out in the community, to listen, to learn, to know that I don't know, I don't have all the answers.
Right.
I don't have the same experience as a lot of people in the district I represent, but if I get out there, listen, learn, try to work with people, come up with solutions, and we can try to improve the system for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what was your driving force to get into politics? Like what really motivated you?
I remember like at a young age being into politics. I mentioned my grandfather. I remember like in the 2000 election. So I was born in 1990. So I remember at 10 years old, like I was watching with my parents the election results for the presidential race coming in, and so it always excited me. And I remember when like they called Florida, they were like Florida went to Gore, and we all thought Gore. I was Democrat, family Democrats rooting for Gore.
Right.
We thought he won the election, and then it reversed. I remember, probably not fully understanding what was going on, but following this whole mess, and then, so yeah, I think it's always been something that's interested me, and I think it's those values I mentioned from my family of this idea that you can change government policy to try to impact people's lives.
Yes.
And then, as I mentioned to you when I came in, because we're in a building where there's Ellis Island, an Ellis Island event here. And so I mentioned my grandparents on my mom's side, they came here to Ellis Island in 1950. They were Holocaust survivors who came from Poland, escaped from the Nazis. They ended up in a displaced persons camp in Austria. And then they came here and they were lucky enough to be able to come here. And then
looking for opportunity and looking for a better life.
Yeah. And then just coincidentally, on Thanksgiving Day, they came into New York Harbor and saw the Statue of Liberty. And I think that was really a sign for them that, this place is a place where they could be free, where they could excel. So I think just having that understanding of where I came from, the struggle that a lot of people go through, and understanding that while America was a place of opportunity, and I love this country and I'm grateful because of it, America has also failed a lot of people, and it isn't a place of opportunity for a lot of people, and we got to change that.
No, that's a great point. That's definitely a great point. And just having a mindset to want to improve the areas of America where they have failed, and knowing how your family got here, seeking, opportunity, seeking a better life, and wanting to put those things in place for the community in which you serve to make sure that everybody has what they need in order to survive and thrive for the dreams that they have in mind as well. Can you tell us what area do you serve as a county legislator?
Yeah, so I represent the 6th district in the Albany County Legislature, and that's
Okay.
basically it's part of the South End, large part
Mm-hmm.
of the South End, like South Pearl Street, where the old DMV is, the Mansion neighborhood,
Okay.
Lower Madison Ave,
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to the river. So 787, the riverfront, and then also downtown Albany, where we are now, which was interesting. When I got elected in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
no one really lived in this kind of downtown business area, but
Right.
that's changing. Now there's a neighborhood association here,
Yes.
a lot of housing development, and then kind of north to Arbor Hill, the edge of Arbor Hill, Tenbrook Triangle, the Ida Yarborough public housing, which is also an area that has become very much more developed in the last few years.
Absolutely.
So.
It's definitely transforming into a real commercial, residential balance. So we have a lot more residents than we did in previous years. I've been in your district for over 15 years now, and now that I've been here, I've definitely seen a transformation of things going from strictly business, government, and commercial to being a balance of both residents as well as businesses in the area, which I love, because the more people that are living and staying in downtown Albany, the more business that can be developed around the residents that live here. So that's definitely a great thing for me as an entrepreneur to have more residents in the area in downtown Albany. So I'm happy for that. Um, how do you think that things are being impacted and changed by the changes that you're seeing with a lot of residents being in the area?
I think it's overall a good thing. I feel like Albany is somewhat of behind on this. Albany is a place where, like downtown, often it's state workers. There's this giant highway. A lot of the city was demolished to create a large highway, to create parking lots for state workers, a plaza, kind of shuffle people in from the suburbs.
Yeah.
And then they leave. And so there's not a lot of economic activity. There weren't a lot of people living downtown. And then the pandemic, now everyone's not back at work full time. People now work hybrid. So we've got to find new ways to kind of reinvent the economy downtown.
Absolutely.
So, I think overall, it's a good thing. We want more people in the city living here. We want it to be more vibrant. But it also, I think, has, there's some challenges too. We want to make sure that it's not developed in a way that pushes people out.
Right, absolutely.
And I think it's not one or the other. Sometimes people say, kind of don't want development because they're concerned about gentrification, people be displaced. And some people are like all about it. It's like, we just got to bring in as much investment as possible. And I think it's not one or the other. It's like, how do we do it? I think there's a way we can lift up communities without pushing people out who don't have a lot of money. That's not the goal. We want to lift people up, not just push them out.
Right.
So.
Right. It definitely has to be a safe balance. And I definitely feel like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Development is good, but you always have to keep in mind the community that's already in place. And if it's a good ecosystem of development as well as affordable housing and a lot of jobs being developed in the area, then you can have a balance of both that will work as a good economy that serves the people that live there and allows for them to stay in their community and build up their community, and at the same time have new developments that's taking place within the community as well. And we're seeing a lot of that being done on the South End as well. So we have a lot of ideas about new developments that's being put on the table, and how are those things is going to affect your area in which you serve. So what do you think that you can do or have done to make sure that balance is being maintained?
Well, one thing is so Albany County created a Albany County Alliance. Basically, it's like a local economic development authority that the county has. And, this is something that we've been really pushing for, myself, a lot of other county legislators, to get the county to play a more active role in development. But one thing I pushed for, along with some of the other members of the county legislature, was to make sure basically there was diversity on that board, people from all backgrounds. So we pushed to create an MWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise Advisory Committee, which exists. We pushed to have one of the appointments to the board from the chairperson of the Albany County Legislative Black Caucus. That's important, because otherwise, for a long time in this area, people were left out, left out of these discussions and overlooked. And you need to have that perspective. Everyone's perspective needs to be included in this. And we need to make sure that, when we're giving out grants and when we're giving out loans and having these conversations about development, that everyone's included in it. Yeah. So, I think that's important. At the same time, it hasn't, hasn't solved everything. So, it's a step, but
it's a process.
We definitely still need a lot more involvement.
Yeah, it's definitely a process, and everybody's voice needs to be heard, but not just one time. I think that for me, I always see that points get brought up and things get somewhat addressed, but not on a consistent basis. And I think that we as a people, the voices that we put people, representatives in place, that we got to constantly make sure that we are available to be at these meetings, to be at these hearings, so that we can have a consistent voice in what is being done in our communities. And could you tell the people when they can be, or when these meetings and these hearings are taking place, so that they can be more active and present?
Yeah, so the Albany County Legislature, we actually just met last night. We meet once a month. The full legislature meets once a month, the second Monday of every month. At the public comment period, probably the most important piece for people to know, is at 6:30.
Okay.
So we had we had people come last night and speak. We had people speak about speech pathologists who work for the county who don't get paid enough.
Right.
They came and spoke. We had a council member speak. Derek Johnson from the 2nd Ward came and he spoke about the mental health issues that he's hearing in his community. And he was saying, people come to the city council and talk about the mental health issues, but he wanted to come to the county and speak about them because the mental health department is a county department.
Wow.
And it's kind of, unless you really are involved, you probably wouldn't know which departments are at the county level, which are at the city level, which are at the state. It's a complex system. So he wanted to make sure we know at the county the issues that are happening.
Got you. I think that you just made a very valid point. What is the difference between the county and the city? Because you have councilmen that perform their duties directly for the city, and then you have the county legislature. And what is the difference as far as their duties and responsibilities and how they function within the city and state?
Yeah, so I guess they're both set up similarly. So Albany County has about, I think, 320,000 people. Within Albany County are 19 different municipalities. Right. The biggest one's the city of Albany, which is about 100,000 people. So the governments are set up differently. At the city level, you have the city council, which I think most people are familiar with. The county level, you have the county legislature. Probably not as many people are familiar, but it's set up similarly. You have 39 county legislators. We each represent a different district where about 8,000 people live in. Every 10 years, when there's a census, they redraw the districts at all levels, from the city level all the way up to Congress. Gotcha. All the districts are redrawn. But and then you have the county executive at the county, which is kind of like the mayor, but at the county level. So to pass a law, we have to pass it at the county legislature, and then the county executive has to sign it. So that's kind of the way the government's set up. But the roles, so city government, probably the services people see more on a daily basis, like police, fire, paving the roads, picking up trash, the parks.
Yeah.
So I think people are more in touch, understand city government. The county has a lot of human services. The social services department is one of the biggest roles, and a lot of that's money that comes from the federal government and the state, but the county administers the programs like, the temporary assistance, SNAP, assisted housing assistance, people stay in shelters, or providing money for people to avoid eviction, which is, one of the things I've been really focusing on recently. And, the county also has the health department, as I mentioned, the mental health department. So, a lot of the important services that maybe aren't as noticeable, but of course, very important. And for a lot of people that use those services, they are very noticeable and impactful.
Absolutely. And mental health has been like one of the biggest things that has been coming to the forefront, especially like in the last year or so. So knowing that the county administers and basically controls like the mental health that takes place within the city is a big thing, and people need to be aware that it's the county that basically administers and dictates how the mental health services are taking place within the city. And it's not really like the councilman, but the county legislators that really handle that portion of services that go out in the city. And we have seen a uptick in how like mental health issues are being addressed and the awareness that's going on around the city, because a lot of people are actually dealing with them, and now that the awareness is getting out there, is being addressed more readily, and I'm seeing that happen more and more now. So I don't know if that is a direct response to how the county has been handling things, but I definitely seen like more awareness being brought out and more mental health issues being addressed within the city.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard people talk about, people definitely, I feel, are more aware of the mental health issues. And at the county, we got to do a lot more, but we are, I want to highlight, we're doing a program that we started that actually is a partnership with the county and the city. So oftentimes, it's an opportunity where the Albany County and the city of Albany can partner, each provide some funding and have a program. So we're going to have outreach workers pretty soon out on the street in a lot of the neighborhoods where you have a lot of homelessness and people with mental health issues to basically connect people with housing is the biggest thing. And if they have mental health issues or substance use issues, also try to connect people to services, because we need to meet people where they're at.
Absolutely.
And I was at a meeting maybe a year ago at a diner downtown, and a lot of elected officials, police chief, DA, everyone. It was about kind of the issues and how homeless people and people with mental health issues are kind of impacting the businesses downtown.
Yes.
But I think, this is the right approach. We want to be compassionate about it. We're not going around rounding people up and arresting them. That's good. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
Because we don't just want to lock people up.
Right. Because there's a big difference, between somebody that has mental health issues and somebody that's actually committing crimes.
Yeah. So, we're trying to get out there and come up with solutions to meet really the needs of people right now.
Nah, absolutely. And for one, I understand that it's not a quick fix, but at the same time, we want something that's being actively done, because as a business owner, I see it all the time. I might be able to handle it differently, but I know that every business is impacted and affected by either homelessness, people on the streets. We have issues with people on the streets panhandling. So it's a lot of those things that affect and impact businesses on a day-to-day basis that may be better dealt with on a county level, like with mental health issues. And then on the other hand, it may be something that if it's criminal, where it's harassment or something like that taking place, then it has to be addressed like that. And it's no one answer to everything, but it definitely has to be a proactive approach to dealing with all the issues, and that's just only one that is taking place in the city. So moving forward, what do you look to do in regards to your position as a county legislator and fixing some of the issues and going on for another term and just basically making the communities better in which you serve?
Well, yeah, I want to bring in resources into the communities that really have been disinvested in to try to address the issues. So, for example, I've really been pushing this program called EPIC. It's would provide legal counsel to people facing eviction in housing court. And so this is actually a partnership between the city of Albany and Albany County.
Yeah.
And we had a press conference actually yesterday just to announce that we're putting out the RFP, the request for proposal for it, so that basically the process is moving forward.
Okay.
But yeah, people, evictions are up. Housing has become less and less affordable. People can't afford the rent, and people are getting evicted. Right. And look, sometimes people they don't pay the rent legitimately. There's a reason to evict them. Right. So we're not saying people can't be evicted. We're just saying you go into court 95% of the time the landlord has an attorney. 2% of the time the tenant has an attorney. Right. You deserve someone representing your interests and knows how the system works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even with that is something that has to be a safe balance as well, because the way that I see it, looking at it from a view of a tenant or a landlord, if they're not paying the rent, then ultimately that's impacting the landlord who's expecting to be paid and has bills him or herself, so they have to pay their bills to keep the roof over the tenant's head and to do the things that they have put in place to do and run their lives successfully. And then on the other hand, if the tenant is not paying the rent and not doing the right thing in that aspect, but have the legal system at their whim so that they can play out for 6-7 months to a year, then that becomes an issue for the landlord, which ultimately might make them default on their bills. So it has to be a safe balance and have to have some arbitration in the sense of having some fairness on both ends so that both are being represented, and it has to be a win-win in both perspectives, so that if the one person is not taking care of what they need to take care of, then either the landlord could be compensated in a way that will still provide housing for the tenant for exact period of time, for an explicit period of time, and the landlord will still be able to be paid and the tenant will still be able to have housing. So if that safe balance could be addressed, then I feel like that will be a great approach as well, because it's not always the tenant doing the right thing or not knowing the law. They might be playing on the law knowing that they can't be evicted. Yeah. So both things have to be dealt with on a case-by-case situation, and those things are very important to bring to the table as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. Sometimes landlords are demonized, but we shouldn't do that. And especially in cities like Albany, a lot of the landlords are people who live in the homes. It's owner occupied. They might own one home, two homes.
Right.
They've lost their rent for the rental income, and they rely on that. So it's not. And they've made that investment. They deserve it. So this program also has money towards rental arrears. So basically, it's money that helps if a tenant's behind on rent, and they can prove that they're going to have the ability to pay it moving forward. Yes. There's money available that goes to the landlord. So now the landlord's made whole, and the tenant can stay in their home.
Absolutely.
And then we've also changed the program due to some concerns people had that there's going to be some legal assistance for small landlords, for that small group of landlords who don't have an attorney, but ones that are like owner occupied. Preference towards owner-occupied, people who own, a small number of units, not someone who owns 100 units. They're not, So we're trying to work that balance.
Because I think that's very important to state, because it's not one-sided. Just like with anything, it's always two sides to a story, and then somewhere in the middle you get the truth. But both people have to have equal representation in the sense of not just on the legal aspect, but on the fairness and the right aspect as well. Because if I'm not being paid for a service that I provided to a person, or a product that I provided to a person, and then the person is just leaning on the law in the sense that nothing could be done, and I'm going to still continue to get the product or service that's being given to me, then that becomes a problem. Me looking at it from a business perspective, then I'm like, that's not right,
Yeah.
So it has to be fair, and it has to be, some levels of discernment taking place on both ends so that both parties are made whole. So that's very important, and I'm glad that you mentioned that portion of it as well, because that's a big issue, and both people have to have some stake in the laws and the new initiatives that's being passed, and you got to be looked at from both perspectives. So I'm glad that took on that perspective as well. So moving forward with things in aspects of the city, you represent in the South End. The South End is probably one of the areas in which has not seen a lot of growth and development on that end, or money being poured into that end. Well, what are you doing to move that in a direction so that can change, and that a lot of the issues and problems that's in the South End would be made better as time goes on, based on what's being poured into the city?
Yeah, well, so one thing I'm trying to do is so with the legalization of cannabis, one, that's something I support. I think is a real benefit. But regardless of how you feel about it, there's a tax revenue coming in, sales tax revenue to the county. The county gets a portion, and the city gets a portion, basically. Whatever municipality it's the business is located in gets it. So I want to make sure that the money that the county gets in revenue is basically put in a dedicated fund, and that money is used to go to the communities that were most impacted by the war on drugs.
Wow, yes.
So I think that's only fair. That's the state legislation that legalized cannabis. It was all set up around this idea of equity. Yes. So I think we should follow suit in the county. So I proposed this idea with another legislator, Bararo Efekoro. We're pushing it together. We've been in conversations with the leadership in the county legislature about how to do this during the upcoming budget process.
Yes.
But if we can make this permanent, this will be, might only be, I think we might only be getting 50,000 or 100,000 this year, but it'll only increase in the future. Right. And if you combine this in the future, it'll be millions of dollars that are, dedicated towards addressing the needs of the communities that really need it and have been disinvested in for years. So communities like the South End.
Yeah, well, that's huge. That's huge, and I'm glad that they're taking that initiative, because those are the areas that has been impacted the most by the war on drugs. So it's only right that we funnel some of that money back to, now that cannabis is made legal in the state of New York, and we are moving forward with opening up in a lot of cannabis businesses, that the tax revenue be pushed to the areas that was most affected. So I applaud you guys for that, and I hope that bill gets passed and that initiative continues to flow through to funnel that money back to the communities that was impacted the most. So how can the people help you in making sure that these things take place? Because if you are in the position of a public servant, you are serving the people, but the people also have a responsibility to make sure that things get done as well. So how can we help in pushing these initiatives or making these bills get passed that's going to directly impact our communities? So what can we do?
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I've learned over the years is that the people play a really large role, and you really need, if we want to get something passed, it's not enough to just have a good idea and introduce it. Right. You often need the people getting out there and speaking at the meetings and really pushing and holding us accountable publicly at the meetings, whatever, on social media, however get their voice out. So I'd recommend a place to start is to come to the legislative meetings.
Can you say the date and time
it's the second Monday of every month at 6:30. It's at the Albany County Courthouse. Okay. So that's 16 Eagle Street. Okay. Two doors down from City Hall, but you enter in the back of the building on Lodge Street.
Okay. The second Tuesday.
The second Monday.
The second Monday of every month.
Look up, I would say, also you can Google Albany County Legislature. Okay. And the meeting schedule will be there. Okay. But yeah, if you feel that you want the cannabis money to go towards the communities that need it most. You can come and speak about anything. If you want to talk, talk about the issues you see in your community, if you want to talk about the mental health issues you see, or people that you see who don't have access to housing, or if it's your own experience and you're comfortable coming in and talking about whatever it is, whatever you're going through, however you see the government could have an impact in addressing these issues. I think it's important for the legislature to hear, especially because you got 39 legislators from the whole county. So this includes rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. So people in, for example, the suburban areas, let's say Colony or Bethlehem, they don't hear these issues as much because they're not walking around the South End. They don't live there. So they need to hear the struggles that people are facing. They need to hear a different perspective, because often we're hearing from, we'll hear from some legislators from the suburban areas, like, why are we making this investment in Albany, in the city of Albany? That shouldn't be our responsibility. And it really frustrates a lot of us who represent Albany, that see the problems and want the county to have a larger role in addressing these issues.
Right. So basically, come to the meetings so that the voices that you are saying and representing can be amplified. And the only way that we can get these issues put to the forefront is if we speak to those issues and people show up to the meetings and show that we need these issues addressed, not just by the city, but also by the county, that impact and affect us on a day-to-day basis. So basically, at the end of the day, show up to the meetings every second Monday. You can look up on, what's the website?
Just Google Albany County Legislature.
Yeah, Albany County Legislator. Make sure y'all look at those dates and show up to the meetings. The only way to have the issues addressed is to show up to these meetings and point out your issues and amplify your voice with these meetings. So I thank you once again. Do you have any last words before we leave?
Just when you show up, it's okay if you make us uncomfortable. That's the point sometimes. Yes. Not everyone's going to be comfortable hearing what you have to say, but that's a good thing, because people need to hear it. People need to hear the issues going on. And even though I might know them, look, I'm going to learn something too from it. But even if I might be more familiar with the issues that you see in your community, a lot of people, as I mentioned, they don't have that experience. They don't represent constituents that face housing issues, for example. So we need the whole legislature to hear it.
Right. Yeah, the whole people need to show up to say what their issues are and speak to the issues that direct, because other parts of the city, they may live in a bubble, so to speak, and don't really know the issues that are taking place on the South End or Arbor Hill or all these areas that are impacted and affected by different issues that Bethlehem or some other suburban area might be dealing with or not dealing with. So it's very important that the people, just as Sam said, to show up to these meetings and make the people uncomfortable with hearing your voice and hearing what your issues and your problems are, because that's the only way that they're going to be addressed. So once again, I thank you. It was an honor speaking with you on today, and the people can look you up, and you always in the community, so you're always accessible. And every time I'm in my business, I always see you either walking to a meeting or coming back from one. So I thank you for the work that you do, and I continue to do a great job. And if there's any way that we can continue to get the voice out there and deal with these issues, then I'm on board.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angelo. Really enjoyed coming on today. As always, great talking with you.
Yeah, thank you.